Hey, what's up, guys? It's Ryan Kostrowski and Matthew Bellman here for the DFS 5 Pack. How is everyone today?
What's
Good?
happening? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say what's happening, people. Hopefully you guys had a good weekend, enjoyed NFL Sunday, and we're right back into baseball today. Hopefully the Tribe can finish the series off today after yesterday.
Yeah, I'm still riding high off the Packer victory from yesterday. My boy Aaron Rodgers did Dallas dirty again. That was a lot of fun. Made up for my worst NFL DFS day in years, so at least I got to go to bed a little bit happy about real football because that was a fun game. I'm sure even just your average sports fan can enjoy watching a football game like that.
Man, what else is there really to say about Aaron Rodgers, man? As a Packer fan, coming from Favre, we've gone over Favre ad nauseum. I'm still a huge fan, but going from Favre to Rodgers, you really cannot ask for much better in sports. I mean, I have it right now with LeBron, but it doesn't get much better than the quarterback of your NFL team.
It does, but it also hides a lot of your inadequacies as a franchise because we've had a lot of them, but Aaron Rodgers covers them up so they don't make any changes, which is one of the reasons you really only got the one Super Bowl for him because they never put together a decent defense. They're always hurt. Anyways, we're here to talk baseball, not bore you to death with our football views, guys. We got a 4-game slate for the playoffs coming up here, starting about 3 hours as of right now. So I'm sure a lot of you guys are researching. Kind of annoyingly, DraftKings did not have the slate open and ready to evaluate last night. After the football game ended last night, I wanted to spend about an hour researching this before heading off to bed, but it wasn't up. So we're all scrambling a little bit this morning to look through prices. And the first thing that I want to bring up, guys, I'm going to share my screen here. Bear with me. Is the weather. And the weather is something that's going to be a factor today. Now, if you see this here, I don't have a Kevin Roth write-up to go up of yet, but I'm looking at a website I go to a lot, which is Daily Baseball Data, and they do a pretty good job of giving you at least an overview of the weather. So if we started that early game, Houston versus Boston, you're going to have decent temps, 70s, pretty standard, but you see the chance of rain across the board throughout, and also you got big winds blowing out, double-digit winds blowing out to left field, guys. My first thoughts here is you're going to avoid the pitchers. We already have 2 of the weaker pitchers here in Morton and Porcello. Neither of these guys has Porcello's got good amount of playoff experience, and it's not good. He's got a 5.4 ERA in his playoff experience. Winds blowing out, rain possibilities. I would look to avoid both pitchers in this matchup.
Yeah, man. You know those games you play like when you were younger where it'd have like 5 squares in a circle and it'd ask you like pick the one that's not right here?
Yep.
You look at this. You look at these pitchers right here, and Morton and Porcello just don't fit. The other guys are really good. These guys are not. I mean, Morton has pitched really good, but I got no interest here in Boston, even without the weather. Porcello, Houston bats are easily the #1 spot here. No question about it.
Yep, and I was a big Morton fan all year. I used him a lot for DFS, and he did us very, very well. My buddy Devin Scott, who's in one of our Facebook groups, put me onto him early in the year, and he was great. But the guy's got one playoff start in his career. It was several years ago. If I looked it up earlier, I don't think it went overly well or anything like that. And the other thing about this game, guys, neither one of these teams really strikes out much. So you're already limited at upside. Really, the only thing you like about these pitchers is the price. And at that point, you're still looking to use offense here because both of these guys could have rain delays. They could get pulled early. Boston's going to do whatever they can do. So if Porcello gets a little bit roughed up early, they need to win this game. So I will avoid these 2 pitchers like the plague.
Yeah, I have no interest in either of them. I don't even think it's a smart idea to use them in a real contrarian way just because of what you said about the lack of strikeout upside. I might have interest in Morton here if this game were in Houston, but it's not. I got zero interest in either of them.
So then we look at the Cubs and the Nationals, and what it looks like here today is we've got no rain opportunities. The temps are pretty normal, kind of nice for this time of the year. Very little winds. Look like it's going to be blowing in from right field, but not enough to really affect your decision one way or the other. But then if we go to Matthew's team, the Indians, playing at the Yankees tonight, again, it looks like you got some more chances of rain. You got winds, double-digit winds blowing out to left field. So, again, it's really not ideal pitching conditions for the Indians versus the Yankees tonight.
No, it's hard to pick your pitchers tonight. This slate is tough. I don't mind the way DraftKings priced it, but there's just besides Morton and besides Porcello really, and then Morton because he's in Boston. All the pitchers are good. It's hard to pick the spots you want, and with weather included in there, it just makes it even more difficult.
Yep, and I don't have that, like the one lockdown pitcher I feel like you can really even build around today. So even if you were playing on FanDuel, for example, there isn't like that one go-to guy. I can make a case against every single pitcher on the slate. And the one thing I was thinking earlier is I did kind of like the idea of Severino, just because he got shelled in GPP. Because he got shelled, I figured that would make most people gun shy. He's still very capable of high upside. He did pitch pretty well against the Indians earlier this year. But now you got winds blowing out to left field, and you got the chance of rain. So that really makes both Bauer and Severino less desirable in my eyes.
Yeah, to go back on what you first said, though, after talking with you this morning, I think my clear-cut number one guy is Darvish. After the numbers that we talked about he has against Arizona.
So
go ahead.
I would say Matt just brought up the numbers. If you guys are looking at the screen, I can actually share those right now. It's not a gigantic sample size. So you're not taking it to the bank and saying this is a lock. But to me, as a team theory, they don't seem to have much of an answer for Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish has got 58 at-bat appearances against Diamondbacks. Not a ton, but 31 of those have resulted in Ks, which means as a team, with a team WOBA at 248 and a batting average of 190, they haven't figured him out as a team yet. So there is a lot of strikeout upside right there.
Yeah, I actually take those numbers a little bit farther than you do. I actually think they mean – what I meant to say was I actually think those numbers mean a little more than you do. I think that kind of shows a little ownership, in my opinion, and I just have a lot of interest here. I don't really like Scherzer, so I think Darvish is the clear-cut number one. I get Severino and GPPs. I like Darvish a lot in both formats.
Yeah, it's forcing my hand on a day where I don't have a lot of better options. To tend to agree with you on this one, that Darvish becomes my clear-cut number one. I've been in the football bubble for so long, but correct me if I'm mistaken, Dodgers are up 2-0 and going for the series win right here. So I can see him closing it out. The Dodgers really finished the season cold, but they've looked like the old Dodgers so far through the playoffs.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers will probably finish it out today. I did like Greinke a little bit before we talked, but he just hasn't looked right recently. And just to touch on Scherzer, because I'm sure people are going to have interest there as the top guy, there's just something about this spot that I don't like. Obviously, Scherzer has the highest upside of anyone on the slate. He's got no hitter stuff every time he throws the rubber. But just that injury, the matchup in Chicago, I just don't like it here. And I'm usually a Scherzer guy. So the fact that I have a lot more interest in Darvish says a lot today.
Yeah, to me, I have to think that the injury is worse than they're letting on. I mean, Max Scherzer is your clear-cut number one pitcher, right? I mean, Strasburg's pitched well lately, but Max is, without question, a top 5 major league pitcher, right? Maybe even, top 3 or top 2. Any arguments with that?
Agreed. He's their guy. He's got to be more hurt than they're letting on. Agreed.
You don't wait till game 3 to throw him if he's healthy.
Completely agreed there. And so if they're going to hold off on him, I'm going to hold off on him for sure.
Which then, like you had brought up Quintana, and I feel like we may get stuck playing him. I don't love him at all, though, either. He's been extremely erratic since coming to – well, all year long he's been extremely erratic, period. And he's looked dominant at times, and he's looked really poor at times. And if you had gone back about 5 innings prior to the Bryce Harper and Zimmerman home runs to kind of give the Nationals all the momentum, maybe you could have really gotten me bored on Quintana. But the Nats coming off a win, coming off a really big win too, like that, knowing that Zimmerman and Rendon both clean up off of left-handed pitching, I may get stuck going with Quintana, but I don't feel good about it.
So here's my thing, and just thinking about it while looking at the slate. So I do like Quintana, but I agree I don't love him here, and it's more about how I don't really like the other options.
Yeah.
When I look at it, I agree with what you first said. Severino is the guy in GPPs. I just don't know if I can personally go there just playing with my heart, because I'm really not trying to roster the guy going against my Indians in game 4 if he's not like a lockdown type guy. But if I play with my brain and I take that out of it, I'm probably using Severino.
Okay, and that goes back. That's just an interesting side note, because we're all fantasy sports players, right? Trying to be unemotional when looking at your team. It's tough. That is a tough thing for fantasy sports players, and I will specifically grab Packers in my year-long leagues for football all the time, just so I know I can cheer for them a little bit, because I don't want to force my hand to use them in daily, if that makes sense. And it's something we all deal with as fantasy sports players.
Yeah, for sure. I just had a really successful year-long fantasy baseball year, and in my big money team, I had Carrasco, Kluber, and Clevenger, and it was probably the most fun season I've ever had. So that stuff does mean something to me. It's just for me, honestly, and I do try to be unemotional about it, but I would rather just – and I probably will have a line – I might have a lineup, I should say, with Severino, but it won't be for a lot of money because I'd rather just not play than use Severino for a lot of money today because I'm going to be rooting for the Indians hard.
Yep. So that goes back to Trevor Bauer. What do we think of him? Let's pretend that the weather clears up as the day goes, and it seems like we got no weather issues there. We still got winds blowing out to left field. You think Bauer comes out and pitches well again? Or do the Yankees piggyback off somebody not on his normal routine as he get hit hard?
I think he pitches well again, but I don't expect it close to what he did last game. So I don't know, man. I'm still struggling with this one. I think that he's a little bit too cheap because, like, why should he be less than Quintana? But for some reason, I like Quintana more here.
I do think it because it's the Yankees offense and the Yankees at home. I typically will avoid pitching other than that, whatever it was, like a month where the Yankees were horrible and they were striking out like half their at-bats. I wasn't playing guys in Yankee Stadium, period, this year because of how good that offense was at home. So that would be my guess.
Yeah, you're probably right. And it's not that I'm necessarily scared off by the Yankees because they don't really look that great right now. I mean, they played a great game yesterday, but they only won 1-0. It's more just I don't know, man. I'm rooting for Bauer hard, but I just don't know. I just don't know if I can use him in DFS today.
So basically what you're getting from us is we don't love the pitching here. Darvish becomes our clear-cut number one because of the upside for the Ks. We're really concerned about Max's injury. I can't shake the feeling that he's not himself if they're waiting to game 3 to throw him. And if he shows any signs of injury again, it could easily become a bullpen game for him. So it's not a crazy idea to stack Chicago Cubs today.
Yeah, I don't hate that either. They're cheap. You cannot afford playing Darvish and Scherzer, and I just like Darvish more. The Cubs stack is really interesting. There's a couple guys, especially Bryant, that's way too cheap because I don't know how long Scherzer's going to pitch in this game.
Yep. I mean, if he's not himself and he gives up a couple runs early and he's laboring, don't be surprised if he's out of there by the 30th inning. Again, I don't want to completely hitch my wagon to it, but it's not a crazy idea.
No, especially because they got Tanner Roark in the pen. I mean, if Scherzer doesn't look right, this isn't the same Scherzer that we saw in the middle of the year. I mean, he's pitching game 3 for a reason. So I agree with you. I think they won't hesitate at all to pull him if he's struggling.
So we've given our very lukewarm feelings on pitching now. I'm sure most of you watching this are probably in the same boat that you don't love your options today. To have 4 games today and not have one guy that you feel good about is a little weird. But again, I guess we're both kind of saying Darvish is our number one. I hate you, Darvish, for DFS. He's like the T.Y. Hilton of DFS. And what I mean by that is if you fade him in cash games and the people who don't quite get the difference between cash and GPP roll him and he plays well, it ruins you. And there's a lot of times where not playing him can really, really help you. But he's in that scenario today where even though he's not typically a cash game guy for me, what are your better options? So I feel like I'm kind of stuck riding him today.
Yeah, I agree. I actually like Darvish just because I've used him a bunch in the past few years when he's been really low owned with other aces on the slate, and he's really come through in those situations. Today is not going to be one of them, but I also don't think that like he's going to be way more popular than Scherzer. So I think that's something that we could take advantage of because I think Darvish is just much safer and has probably not as high upside, but relatively high.
Darvish is, to me, as high of upside as really anybody that goes out there in any given day to do his Ks. And Arizona has shown that they'll strike out plenty. They may hit a few home runs off you, but they will strike out plenty. And if you want to look at what Darvish's experience is in the playoffs, guys, it's not much. You can only take a very limited amount out of it, but he's got 2 postseason starts. Where are they? Postseason pitching. He pitched really well in 2012 and not so much in his start against Toronto where he gave up a few home runs, but only 5 hits and didn't walk. Only 1 walk between both starts. So I do like that. He has had his control. The strikeout pitch hasn't been working quite as well. And again, it's only 2 starts, and one of them was in 2012, so you can only really take so much out of it.
Yeah, I like Darvish here. The numbers just add to that. I mean, I guess it's more the fact that I don't really love anyone else, but I do like Darvish here. I mean, the upside's there. The numbers are there. Not much not to like here. I mean, I know he's inconsistent, but I like him.
Yep. Okay. Let's pivot on over to catcher. And like any slate that he's on there, Gary Sanchez, wind blown out to left. He's your top option. Do you want to spend your best money there? I don't know about that, but if he's always going to be your top option at catcher, unless he's got like in a real elite matchup.
Yeah, Sanchez is definitely the top option here, but looking at catcher, it is deep on this slate. Usually catcher is not a good position, but here there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 guys that I have interest in here, which is pretty crazy.
All right, well then I'll let you kick it off. Who do you like?
So if I don't, so Sanchez is the top guy, but I agree with you. He's just it's you cannot fit every top bat you want here. So I'm looking at what you just talked about. I like Wilson. I like Brian McCann, but I really like Wilson Contreras here. I like the idea of using a couple Cubs bats. Contreras is just too cheap, given how talented he is. I like him here.
And that's simply you as a GPP player. Like for me as a cash game guy, I'm not looking to use a right-handed bat against Scherzer because Scherzer pitches well. But Matthew is much more of a GPP player, so you're going under the impression that not a lot of people are going to buy Contreras because he's matched up with Scherzer, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I think he'll have low buyers, and I like his upside a lot.
I'm going to take a look at the Dodgers hitters real quick and take a look at their experience versus Mr. Zach Greinke. So you got Yasmani Grandal, who's likely going to be in the lineup today, I would assume. 7 of 28 with 3 extra base hits and 8 Ks off of Yasmani Grandal. I like the 2 home runs. I'm not taking a ton out of that, though. It's pretty mediocre stat-wise, so I don't get much out of there. Grandal, hasn't done much in a while. I mean, he's not giving me any reason I have to start him today or anything like that. I think you could look at Brian McCann against Porcello.
Yeah, he was a guy I originally looked at. I think he's probably a little bit safer than Contreras. And everyone's going to be on that Houston game. So like you said at the beginning, the GPP player I am, that's why I like Contreras, because he's like the same price as McCann, and McCann's going to be a lot more popular.
The other option to me would be Christian Vasquez down at 3,100 to save a few more dollars going up against Morton. Vasquez is 3 for his last 7.
I mean, I don't. Go ahead.
I was just going to say cap space. I mean, every couple $100 matters on a slate like this.
Yeah, I don't hate that move. I just think that I know he's in a better matchup. I just have a really hard time personally playing Christian Vasquez for $200 cheaper than Wilson Contreras. Personally.
Yep. And I look at that differently. I look at Morton versus Scherzer, whereas you talk all year long about how Scherzer is basically unhittable by right-handed hitters.
For sure.
Due to his slider. So if you're playing Contreras, you're kind of assuming that Scherzer only gets out there for a few innings, which I think is a decent bet. The cash game, I don't know if it's a bet that I'd want to use. I'd probably lean on Brian McCann going up against a much weaker pitcher and Rick Porcello. But in GPP, I mean, again, we both don't think it's a bad bet to assume that Scherzer only pitches a couple innings today.
Yeah, the only thing about stacking the Cubs, which I don't necessarily like, is there's other offenses I think that are good spots. It's something I get the move stacking the Cubs, and it's something I'll have a little bit of interest in and use a couple of them. But I like Boston here. I like Houston here. I like the Dodgers here. Like, is this a situation where it's getting too cute by using the Cubs? Are they really going to outscore those other teams? I also not sure that this is really a stacking type day. I might just pick a few bats from different spots.
Yeah, I usually do that. I do a lot of mini stacking. For me, when I play GPP guys, I tend to play multi-entry. So if I do like 10 lineups for a day, you kind of have to looking at it as a grouping theory. So I do a lot of like 3-man stacks and kind of break them up. A lot of 2, 3, and 4-man stacks. I don't go 5 a lot unless I really, really love the spot. So.
Yeah. No, good point. I was just going to say that even taking that a step further, and you're obviously going to have some guys on the same team with such a small slate, but I don't even mind just going, if you have the salary to do this, just picking one-offs today.
Yeah. Playoff baseball is different than regular season too. So there's that. All right, let's shimmy on over to first. To me, first base, is where you are stuck making some decisions, because right away, if you scroll down past the top tier guys, we're big on Darvish, so I'm not going Goldie. As much as I love the season Cody Bellinger has had, he hasn't done so much lately. I mean, the guy has 9 of his last 17 at bats have ended in a strikeout. He's been striking out like crazy, so I'm not spending my good money there. And then you get down into, if you look here, the Ryan Zimmerman, Anthony Rizzo, Greg Bird, Yuli Gurriel, Mitch Moreland conundrum. You got 5 guys sandwiched there between 3,900 and 3,400, and I can make a legitimate case for any single one of them.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of countering myself, but in GPPs, it's definitely Rizzo for me. I just think he's way too cheap. He's 3 of 10 off Scherzer with a bomb in his career, which is not saying a lot, but it also tells me that he hasn't been absolutely dominated by Scherzer. So at 3,800, this just goes back to what I said about Contreras. And again, we're just talking over the slate for the first time, but I'm a big fan of playing players based on their talent. And this is just too cheap for Rizzo here.
Yep, and that's again where you and I are just a little bit different. Sometimes you look at talent more than I look at matchup a little bit more, which is good for you guys because it gives differing opinions. So there's that. I also don't mind Ryan Zimmerman at all at 3,900, coming off a game where he went 2 for 4 with a bomb, stole a base too, but that's a bit of an anomaly. And the big thing for Zimmerman comes down from the fact we got Quintana making his first start in the playoffs. And Zimmerman has got a full career of being drastically better against left-handed pitching.
Yeah, I don't mind Zimmerman here. And the other guy that I was when I first looked at the slate who I liked was Gurriel. Houston is the best offense on the board today, so he's a nice piece if you are stacking Houston. I think he's more than playable in either format. He hits most of his damage is off right-handed pitching, and I like playing righties against righties like that because people just always, have the impression that righties are better against lefties, and they don't do the research. Gurriel is way better against righties.
Yep, this is 100% true, guys. I talk reverse splits all the time, so this is nothing new for me to agree with that. And I wouldn't sleep on Mitch Moreland either. He's played well. He's coming off a game where he's 3 for 5 with a double. If you look at the end of the year, he finished relatively strongly with a bunch of nice games and everything like that. And nobody ever buys Mitch Moreland. And he's cheap. I would probably keep him in the GPP. I would rather go Zimmerman or even Greg Bird in a cash game. But I have no issues looking at Mitch Moreland at all and saving a few $100 right there.
Yeah, I don't mind that either. It's funny. It's funny just looking at this slate because all the pitchers are pretty good, but I have interest in a lot of the bats too. Just objectively thinking about it, I don't mind the Yankees at all. You could stack almost any team here.
Yeah, I can make a rational reason to stack any team, even the Diamondbacks against Darvish. I can make a rational case for stacking against them. And something I might do today, guys, is I'm going to have a little time, so I'll probably run some multi-entry GPP. I might just go balls to the wall with you, Darvish, and run him 80%, but then I might run 2 Diamondbacks hedge stacks in case Arizona shows up today. And we've seen Darvish get hit really hard in the past. And I don't think the Dodgers will hesitate to pull him and go to the bullpen if it's close. And if it gets away with them, they're probably going to waste their worst pitchers on the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's an ultra contrarian move. I mean, the Diamondbacks are the one team that I really don't like here, but I think a lot of people are going to look at it like that. So I think it's definitely, yeah, I might do what you do. I'm to a lesser extent. If I run 3 lineups today, say I normally run 1 or 2, I might do 3 today for a little bit less each. Run Darvish in 2 of them, and then run some Arizona backs in the 3rd.
And for anybody who's new to watching this, if you've never heard the term hedge stack before, this is really for people who play multi-entry. I don't play massive multi-entry. You're not going to catch me entering 100 lineups and using a lineup optimizer, but I'll bust out an Excel spreadsheet and I'll set 10 MLB lineups. And I like to run things by exposure. And a hedge stack, and these things can work out gold. And a perfect example of this was earlier this year, there was a small day slate for MLB, and Mike Montgomery, lefty, was going up against the Brewers. And everybody went Montgomery. I think he was like 90% owned because it was a 2 or 3 game slate. And I used plenty of Montgomery, but I hedge stacked the Brewers. My Brewers hedge stack brought in like 30 times my buy-in, and I ended up making like 4 times my buy-ins for the day, and most of it came via 1 hedge stack. So it's just adding a safety. It will lower your overall profit margin if you're right, But on the days where everybody went the wrong way and you took that hedge stack, you can make real money doing that.
For sure. I remember that day Domingo Santana went ham. We talked about that for a while.
I think they pulled Montgomery in the first or the second, and the Brewers had like 9 runs early on. It was awesome because I made big money that day because everybody stacked or everybody used Montgomery, and I was like one of, like 15 lineups to stack Brewers. So it was gold to be up near the top.
Yeah. So what you just said, I love that situation. I don't necessarily think we have it today, but what you talked about is pure gold. So when you have a pitcher like Montgomery, who's going to be chalk because either it's a small slate and or he's just really cheap and, people are going to pair him with the expensive pitcher, I love stacking against that guy because whenever a guy that's not really good is chalky, it's blow-up potential all over it.
Yeah. And this slate isn't that much different. It's a little weird, but where you look at like Porcello versus Max Scherzer, I mean, they're both Cy Young Award winners. I don't specifically love it on this slate, but in general, a 2, 3, or a 4-game slate is where it works out really well to do something like that.
I mean, that is, again, doing Scherzer really dirty comparing him to Rick Porcello, but I get your point.
Rick Porcello won the Cy Young last year. He hasn't been the same guy this year, but he was really, really good last year. So I just think it's not Sandy Koufax, versus, I don't know, some really crappy pitcher I can't think of off the top of my mind. Anyways, let's move over to second base so people can get on to making their lineups.
Second base is kind of easy to me. I'll start it off just because I think it's kind of clear. So there's a really high option I like, Altuve.
Hard not to like him.
Hard not to like him here. It's really hard to pay up for him, though. There's a middle option I like a lot in Kipnis, but you can use him in the outfield as well. He's swinging a really hot bat right now. I liked his at-bat against Chapman a lot. But the guy I'm looking to use, and I'm going all the way down, is Pedroia at 3.4K.
And I was going to say it's a shame that we probably don't get his spot in the batting order before we have lineup lock and having to look at Pedroia, because I can make a real argument for Howie Kendrick facing a left-handed pitcher as well. But I don't know where he'll be in the lineup. I assume he'll be in the lineup. But if he's all the way down in like the 7 and the 8 spot, I don't like him nearly as much because I do get the rationalization or the like for Pedroia at 3.4. He's also not been very good throughout the playoffs, and it's been a long time since he put up even a double-digit game.
I know. It's just something about him here. I guess it's more the fact that I like Boston in this spot, and his name is really good for 3.4K. He's going to be batting at the top of the order, and he gives a nice piece of the stack.
So another guy that might be a little bit sneaky, Ben Zobrist has 3 career bombs off Scherzer.
Yeah, I like Zobrist here. I just was seeing that he's like 5 for 25. I'm trying to limit my Cubs exposure because I already like Contreras, Rizzo, and Bryant. So if I use those 3, I'm not going to use any more Cubs.
Yep, I'm a big Chris Taylor fan. I don't specifically love the matchup with Greinke. I tend to look at Taylor versus lefties. But on top of that Dodgers lineup, I love Chris Taylor. I just think he's a really solid player. He gives you dual eligibility. And I can see the Dodgers absolutely shelling Greinke today.
Yeah, I could too. I mean, we talked about this prior. I don't know how much I love the Dodger bats, but I like Taylor here a lot. And he's a guy that we've rode all year, really.
How has Castro been? He's been playing pretty well.
Yeah, Castro's been hitting really well right now.
So there is that. You got the wind blowing out to left again today.
So I feel like the Yankees, just to touch on that real quick, I think the Yankees are a team that if I used, I would stack them. I just think that either they go off or they don't. If they go off, I want as much exposure as I can to them.
What would be your best guess? Do you think people are going to look hard at the Yankees, or do you think they're going to look at the last start where Bauer owned them and think, man, I don't want a piece of that?
I think it's kind of going to – honestly, I think this is going to kind of be a stay-away game. I don't think there's going to be that much interest in this game from a DFS perspective because of the rain. I think there's other good spots. With that being said, I think more people will probably go to buy Bauer just because he did dominate them a few days ago.
Yep. Okay. So we've talked about that already. Houston and Boston is your top place to get bats. And if you're going to play cash lineups, that's where I would get most of your exposure for a multitude of reasons. It's got the lowest priced pitchers on the board. We got 2 offenses that have played relatively well. We got the rain there. We got the wind blowing out. Everything logical would tell you that this is the top game for offense. You're going to have starting lineups out already. People get to watch it during their workday, so they're happy about that. that's where the ownership is going to go. If you want to play GPP today, I would say you're going to want to, if you really, really want to be contrarian and try to get to the top, I would stay away from that game because that's where it makes, without question, the most logical sense to head towards that game. Everything screams Houston and Boston for offense. So that's going to get a lot of love right there. If you want to be different, you're going to want to look towards a later game if that's how you play DFS.
Completely agreed. The only thing I'll add to that is I don't necessarily think you need to use a pitcher from that game to be contrarian, simply because if you're spending down at pitcher like that, you're really only doing it for the Houston bats, and you don't want to use any Houston bats. So, yeah, it's going to be ultra contrarian if you use even Morton, especially if you use Porcello here. I still wouldn't recommend that. I agree with what you said. Just don't touch this game at all. Pretend it's not on the slate.
Yeah, between the weather guys and the fact that Houston and Boston just don't strike out, these are two of the top 5 lowest K rate teams in all the leagues. So we're not using pitchers from there, and that was a great add-on point. So we'll move over to third base after that. But just to reiterate, I think Jose Altuve may be my top overall bat on the slate. Again, the guy has been, 8 hits and 11 at-bats during the playoffs. And he's walked 3 times as well. So he's got very, very safe points. Probably my top cash game option for a high price guy.
Yeah, agree with that for sure. He's just too good right now.
Moving over to third base. Jose Ramirez, didn't he get a home run robbed by Judge last night?
No, that was Lindor. Ramirez looks
Lindor.
Ramirez is swinging out of his shoes. I cannot recommend playing him at all right now.
Okay. He did take Sev Yard a couple of times earlier this year, but Jose Ramirez has been a real up and down character. So I would rather look probably towards guys below him. You got Rendon, who's got 2 home runs in his last 3 games, although he had just won in the playoffs. Rendon loves left-handed pitching, guys. Loves it. Eats it up.
Yeah, there are so many good bats on this slate. It's just you get the playoffs where all the best lineups are in play. I mean, you just look at third. This is just crazy. You got Chris Bryant, Justin Turner, Jake Lamb, all at 3.8 or 3.7 right in a row. And I know that we don't have interest in Lamb here because he's going against Darvish. He hasn't done much in the second half of the year. But that's a pretty good threesome for none of them being in the top 5 here.
And, I mean, I'll give Toss Lamb a little love. He's coming off a multi-hit game.
Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, though, yeah, there's a lot of guys you could use here. Rendon is in play. I don't like Bregman as much against the righty. I like Bryant here, but Justin Turner might be the go-to guy.
Yeah, let me click on him. So I played the 2-game slate the other night because our 4-game slate didn't start out so well. I actually ended up doing really well with the 4-game slate because everything late helps me out. But then I rocked the 2-game slate later, and I was one of the small percentage of people that used Justin Turner, and he was awesome. So he's on my good side right now. And Turner can hit both lefties and righties. This year he killed lefties. Last year he killed righties. He can hit anybody. He's played very well so far. He's got 40 DFS points through 2 games. And if you look at his experience off of Zach Greinke specifically, he's gone 7-22, which is a .318 batting average. He's got 3 doubles, a triple, a home run, only 4 strikeouts and 22 at-bats. That's an OBP of 348, a slug of 682, an OPS over 1,000, and a WOBA over 400. I'd say Justin Turner's the clear-cut guy at third base.
Yeah, I agree. I would mention, Urshela at 2.7, but because he's going to be probably the cheapest guy in the lineup. But
okay.
I would say, but honestly, before I even mention him, there's no way I'm saving $1,000 from Turner. If Turner was $5K, maybe, but he is under $4K here.
Yeah, the more I think about this, guys, the more I think the Dodgers close out today. And I'm rooting for the Diamondbacks. I like the Diamondbacks. It just, you get those side teams that you enjoy watching. That's Arizona for me. But to me, this game adds up to the Dodgers being the favorite. Like if I had to just make a bet straight up winner, I would easily go with the Dodgers.
Yeah, I agree. And just lastly about this, even on a 4-game slate like this, like you just mentioned before with the Houston game and the Cubs game, people like to watch that during the day. This game is at 10 Eastern. People are just not going to be interested in that just because of that. So you can just get low ownership even on a 4-game slate simply because it's the last game.
Yep, for sure. And since we're kind of run through third base here, and I'll give and say that since I'm going to do our cash lineup today, I can all but make a really safe bet Turner will be my third baseman. And then shifting over to shortstop, my top shortstop is right there from the Dodgers as well, and that's Corey Seager.
Yeah, I mean, I just think they're too cheap here. Look at what he's done the past 3 games. He's starting to really hit well. I mean, like every other position, I like Correa here. I like Turner here. I like Lindor here. But no reason Seager should be 4K. He's my top guy.
Yeah, without question. And again, it's not a huge sample size, but he is 6 of 11 with 2 homers, 1 double, and 5 walks against Seager. And as much as I love the 2 home runs and the double, he's walked a third of his plate appearances versus Zach Greinke, which means he is seeing the ball incredibly well out of his hand. I got Seager as possibly my top overall bat, dollar, point per dollar value, or however you want to phrase it.
Yeah, the more that we think about it, the more that we're looking at it, I like the Dodgers more and more. They're too cheap. Greinke hasn't been pitching well. I like them in this spot.
And we got a lot of offense today. These are really all hitters' parks today. I mean, Wrigley is completely reliant on the wind, but when there's no wind like there is today, it tends to play fair, I guess is a better way to call it. Boston, with the wind blowing out, is a hitter's park. New York is definitely a hitter's park. And Arizona is your second best hitter's park in all of baseball. So there's a lot working for the offense there. I love Carlos Correa. Don't get me wrong. If I just had to choose between the two of them, I might go Correa. But for 1,100 less, Seager becomes my guy.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I also don't even know. If they were all the same price, Seager might be my guy. Like, you get a little tainted because when you see the prices next to them, but there's no reason Seager couldn't be 5K here. I mean, this guy is high-priced all year. If they were all the same price, I still might like Seager here.
Possible. I look at Correa's 45 points over the last 2 games, and even though I'm ragging on Greinke here, I still think Greinke is a slightly better pitcher than Porcello.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Greinke's way better than Porcello. Man, you kind of like Porcello more than I thought you did. I think Porcello's garbage. I think that his Cy Young award was an aberration. I cannot believe he won that. I don't think he's very good at all.
Yeah, we differ, and I tend to give him a little bit of respect for his Cy Young award. And I also look at, like, he's got some decent starts this year. He's just had some really bad ones. He does give up a lot of hard contact. So I guess I'm just trying to show a little more respect to the defending AL Cy Young Award winner, whose chances of winning it this year are somewhere between 0 and 0.
Yeah, he's not taking it home this year.
All right. Last but not least, let's shift over to outfield. Love me Bryce Harper. That was a huge home run. If the Nats end up taking down the Cubs, you can pin it all to that 4,000-foot home run he hit the other day. I just lefty on lefty isn't where I want to spend 5K.
No. Interesting here. My top outfielder is a little bit of a surprise to anyone probably. There's no one even in the top 5. You can make a case for any of these guys, but I like Mookie Betts a lot here.
That's an awesome one. Take a look at Betts real quick. Yeah, I can see that. Betts is one of those guys. He does hit righties better than lefties, and that's not a new thing. So I'm good with Betts. I have no interest in Aaron Judge, guys. Bauer made him look foolish the other day, and I'm not saying that he can't take Bauer with one swing if Bauer, hangs a curveball, but he was horrible against Trevor Bauer the other day. So I'm not looking to spend my good money on Aaron Judge.
Yeah, no, Judge just looks off. Obviously, he has high upside, but I'd probably rather use Bellinger here, and I don't really have interest in either of them.
Yeah, Judge looks like his best case scenario as they continue to walk him. He's got 8 Ks and 11 registered at bats against Cleveland. So, yeah, he can change everything in one swing. And, yes, the wind is blowing out to the left. So, being that he's 9.5 feet tall and weighs 1,000 pounds, it doesn't take much for him to pop one up in the air to get a home run. But he just has not been great. So, Harper and Judge, I'm not looking to spend my good money there. I'd much rather go with Altuve. If I had to pay top dollar for an outfielder, I'd rather go Springer.
Yeah, I agree. Marwin Gonzalez there, 4.5K. If you want to be ultra contrarian, he is probably going to get no love because that price tag is just crazy high. So a lot of times, just personally for you guys, when I see someone that has a price tag that's like 1,000 too high, maybe not that much in this case, but he's higher than JD Martinez and Mookie Betts, a lot of times people will just automatically look away. And while that's my first instinct, I'll have a little bit of interest simply because for the GPP side of me that he's going to get no love.
Yep. And I totally agree with that sometimes. The same thing with like leaving money on the table for baseball. And people have trouble doing it, but sometimes it's the way to go.
Yep.
JD Martinez, I usually look to roster him versus lefties. I mean, he's a one swing in the bat type of guy, but not an ideal space for him. Could he get a hold of one tonight off of Darvish? Yeah, of course he could, but I'm not going out of my way to roster him. He's 2 for 11 with 6 Ks off Darvish, so that's mostly going to be a look to avoid for me.
Yeah, there's 2 guys I'm looking at a little bit cheaper that I think are too cheap again. Jay Bruce at 3.7. Obviously, Severino is not someone you want to pick on, but none of these guys are pitchers you would pick on a normal slate. Bruce is just too cheap here. And then another Cub that I like is Schwarber at 3.5.
Yeah, Schwarber is a one swing type of a guy. He's an ideal spot to me for to be a GPP play today. He can help you save a few bucks. Scherzer will give up home runs to left-handed hitters. Schwarber he's an elite power hitter. He's not an elite hitter, but he's an elite power hitter. And there's no reason he couldn't get a hold of one today. So I'm with you on that one. I can listen to your Jay Bruce theory as well. He's had some really nice at-bats so far throughout the playoffs. Brett Gardner against Trevor Bauer. You can talk me into that one as well. If we go back and look, what has Bauer done, or what has Gardner done versus Bauer in his career? In 6 of 23, 5 walks, mediocre stats, so you really can't take much out of that.
Yeah, no, I think there's a bunch of ways you can go here. Like I said, I like Kipnis also. I'm not really looking to target any stacks, so I'm just picking out. Also, your guy Kendrick is in play at 3.4 here. If we use Altuve, he gives us a nice savings in the outfield.
Yep. David Peralta. Yeah, not so much. Again, I'm only really rarely looking. I'll run a head stack, but I'm not looking really to target against Darvish too much. Howie Kendrick, I really, really would love it if we can get word on where he is playing today. But don't hesitate. Quintana has had some blow-up starts, guys. You can get some tremendous value if you look at these Washington Nationals right here. Kendrick, Taylor, Worth, all guys that like lefties, all priced at 3,400.
Yeah, so just this slate is weird in the sense that a lot of times, like football last night, it wasn't a great slate because there just weren't that many options that we wanted to use. This slate is weird in the sense that there's almost too many options that we like here. There's a lot of bats we like. While we don't love any pitchers, really, a lot of them we like a little bit. So it's just really hard to narrow it down, which makes it fun, but it means that I'm not going to throw a ton of money into this slate.
No, I don't throw a ton of money into playoff. Even though playoff baseball has gone well early on for me, I still could never – I won't put good money on MLB playoff slates. Just maybe that's just me, but –
No,
and then the drop downs below them. I mean, there's not much down here. Ellsbury, but we don't know if he's even playing, so you can't really rely on him. Yeah, once he's down much lower than that.
Is Beltran going to be in the lineup today?
Good question. They did play him against a righty the other day. He didn't do much. We do know that Beltran tends to love to play in the playoffs. Granted, a lot of that was for him at a much younger age. Where is he? I thought, if I remember, he did have good results. Against 10 of 27 off of Porcello, which is a career 370 batting average. It's a lot of singles, though. So, again, I don't know how much you can take out of that. But if you need cap space, it's a reasonable play. He is also somebody that could very likely get pinch hit for later on in the game. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if he's in there, cap space is cap space, right? I mean, you can get a guy at 3,100.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I'm just going back. I think we've pretty much talked outfield ad nauseum, but just going back to just real quick, touching back on what we just talked about, I actually think Seager might be my favorite play of the day. He owns Greinke, and he's just been really hot right now. So I think I'm going to lock him in any format.
Yeah, I do think that the little mini stack of Seager Turner is going to get a good amount of love from me today. So you can take a look at those guys. And Altuve is probably my top money big bet. So that pretty much covers it, guys. Lineup lock or lineup start to lock starts in about 2 hours and 20 minutes from now. So we need to go do our write-up for our customers. You guys want to be members of the DFS 5-pack, go ahead and sign up. We will continue to cover MLB playoffs for the rest of the year. And then obviously football's big, but we're getting into NBA here really, really quickly too as well. So if you want to become part of the family, we'd love to have you. Outside of that, I appreciate you guys taking a watch.
Yeah, have a good day, guys. Enjoy this 4-day baseball slate we got, and go Tribe.
All right. Take care, guys. Thanks.